Every day, billions of people around the world sit upon a throne of porcelain without giving it a second thought. We flush, we wash our hands, we walk away. Simple, sanitary, civilized. But this everyday convenience that we take for granted represents one of humanity's greatest triumphs over disease, filth, and death itself. This is the story of the flush toilet, a tale that spans 5,000 years, crosses continents, and involves queens, plumbers, cholera epidemics, and one of the most offensive smells ever recorded in human history. The story of the flush toilet begins not in Victorian England, as many might assume, but in the scorching heat of the Bronze Age, around 2800 BC, in what is now Pakistan and northwestern India. Here, in the cities of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, the Indus Valley Civilization was building something revolutionary. While most of the ancient world was content with holes in the ground or chamber pots emptied into the streets, the engineers of the Indus Valley were constructing sophisticated urban sanitation systems that wouldn't be matched for nearly 4,000 years. Archaeological excavations have revealed homes with private toilets, brick-lined drains, and vertical chutes that connected to covered drainage systems beneath the streets. Each house possessed its own bathing platform, its own toilet connected to a network of underground sewers built with precisely laid bricks. The waste flowed away from living spaces through clay pipes into cesspits or street drains, preventing contamination of the water supply. At roughly the same time, 2,500 miles away on the Mediterranean island of Crete, the Minoan civilization was developing its own flushing toilets. At the Palace of Knossos, archaeologists discovered a wooden seat perched over what they called a flushing conduit, a tunnel that streamed water from a rooftop reservoir down to an underground sewer. These weren't isolated innovations. They represented an understanding that would take Europe millennia to rediscover. Waste must move away from where people live, eat, and sleep. Ancient Rome took sanitation to a grand, if less private, scale. By 315 CE, Rome boasted 144 public toilets featuring stone benches with keyhole-shaped cutouts, where Romans would sit side by side, socializing while attending to their bodily functions. Water flowed constantly beneath, carrying waste through the Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's earliest sewer systems, and out into the Tiber River. But for all their engineering prowess, the Romans had one notable hygiene blind spot. They shared communal sponges on sticks for cleaning themselves. Privacy and personal hygiene, it seems, were concepts still being developed. Then came the fall of Rome, and with it, the fall of sanitation. The Middle Ages witnessed one of history's great regressions in public health. Those magnificent Roman aqueducts crumbled into ruin. The sophisticated sewers collapsed and filled with debris. Europe descended into what can only be described as filth. Medieval Europeans relied on chamber pots, which were unceremoniously dumped from windows into the streets below. In France, the warning cry, "Gardez l'eau," meaning watch out for the water, would ring out before a deluge of human waste splashed onto the cobblestones. This phrase, some historians believe, may have evolved into the English nickname for the bathroom, the loo. Castles had garderobes, small rooms projecting from castle walls with holes that dropped waste directly into moats or onto the ground far below. While this kept the castle interior relatively clean, it was hardly a solution that promoted public health. The consequences of this medieval regression in sanitation were catastrophic. The Black Death of the 14th century, which killed up to half of Europe's population, thrived in the unsanitary conditions of medieval cities, Enter Sir John Harington, the man who would change everything, born on August 4th, 1560, in London, England. Harington was a poet, a courtier, and the godson of Queen Elizabeth I herself. She called him her saucy godson, a nickname he earned through his risque poetry and sharp wit. But his verses would prove to be his downfall. After writing particularly scandalous poetry and translating racy passages from Italian literature, Harington found himself banished from the Queen's court in the 1580s. Exiled to his manor in Kelston, near Bath, Harington had time on his hands. He was clever, inventive, and apparently not fond of the primitive sanitary arrangements of his day. So between 1584 and 1591, he designed and built something extraordinary. England's first flushing toilet. He called it the Ajax, a clever pun on a jakes, the slang term for a toilet in Elizabethan England. Harington's invention was remarkably sophisticated for 1596. Picture a 2-foot-deep oval bowl, waterproofed with pitch, resin, and wax, fed by water from an upstairs cistern. A system of handles, levers, and weights would pour in water from the cistern while simultaneously opening a leather-faced valve at the bottom of the pan. The waste would flush down into a cesspit below. A single flush required 7.5 gallons of water, a veritable torrent, but Harington noted that when water was scarce, up to 20 people could use his device between flushes. In 1596, Harington published a book describing his invention, titled A New Discourse of a Stale Subject, called The Metamorphosis of Ajax. But this was no simple instruction manual. It was a satirical political allegory, laced with thinly veiled attacks on the monarchy and sharp commentary on the Earl of Leicester. The book made political waves, once again angering Queen Elizabeth. Yet despite her displeasure with his politics, Elizabeth remained intrigued by the toilet itself. In 1592, she visited Harington at Kelston. He proudly demonstrated his Ajax, and the Queen herself tried it out. She was so impressed that she ordered one installed at Richmond Palace. For a brief moment, it seemed the flush toilet might catch on. But it didn't. The problem wasn't the device itself. The problem was infrastructure. Or rather, the complete lack of it. Without running water in homes and without sewer systems to carry waste away, Harington's invention remained a curiosity, a novelty for the very wealthy. The flush toilet required a citywide system to support it, and in 1596, no such system existed. The Ajax faded into obscurity, and chamber pots continued their reign. Nearly 2 centuries passed. Then, in 1775, a Scottish watchmaker named Alexander Cumming secured the first patent for a flushing water closet. Cumming wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. He was trying to fix a fatal flaw in Harington's design. The problem was smell. Without a barrier between the toilet and the sewer below, noxious, potentially explosive gases would rise up through the bowl and into homes. These weren't just unpleasant. They were dangerous. Sewer gas could ignite, causing explosions that killed people. Cumming's brilliant solution was elegantly simple. The S-trap, an S-shaped curve in the waste pipe that would retain water after each flush. This pool of water created a seal, a liquid barrier that prevented sewer gases from entering the building while still allowing waste to pass through. This design, with minor modifications, is still used in virtually every toilet in the world today. Cumming also improved the flush mechanism itself, creating a system that would swirl the water, more effectively cleaning the bowl. But even with these improvements, Flush toilets remained rare. Most houses still lacked indoor plumbing. Most cities still lacked sewers. The toilet was ready. Society was not. To understand why the flush toilet finally caught on, we must understand the horror of Victorian London. By the early 19th century, London was the largest city in the world, home to more than 1 million people. It was also drowning in its own filth. The city had over 200,000 cesspits and only 360 sewers, most in terrible repair. Some cesspits leaked methane, which would catch fire and explode. Others simply overflowed, sending rivers of raw sewage through streets and courtyards. Dead animals rotted in gutters. Human waste piled up in basements. And all of this eventually found its way into the River Thames, which was also London's primary source of drinking water. Then, in 1831, a terrifying new disease arrived from Asia: cholera. The symptoms were horrific: violent vomiting, agonizing diarrhea, dehydration so severe that victims' skin would turn blue-gray. Death could come within hours. Between 1832 and 1866, 4 major cholera epidemics ravaged London, killing tens of thousands. The 1854 outbreak in Soho alone killed more than 600 people in just 10 days. Victorian doctors believed in the miasma theory, the idea that disease spread through foul-smelling air, through poisonous vapors rising from sewage and decay. They were wrong, but they didn't know it yet. So when Edwin Chadwick, the first sanitary commissioner of London, tried to fight cholera, he focused on removing foul air by rapidly flushing sewage away from homes. His intentions were noble. The result was catastrophic. All that sewage went straight into the Thames, contaminating the drinking water even more severely. The cholera epidemics intensified. One man suspected the truth. Dr. John Snow, a physician and pioneering anesthesiologist, didn't believe in miasma. In 1849, he published a paper titled "On the Mode of Communication of Cholera," arguing that the disease spread through contaminated water, not bad air. Most doctors dismissed him. They clung to miasma theory. But in 1854, Snow got his chance to prove his theory. During the devastating Soho outbreak, he mapped every cholera death in the neighborhood. A pattern emerged. The deaths clustered around a single location: the Broad Street water pump. Snow investigated and discovered that a cesspit just 3 feet away from the pump was leaking sewage into the water supply. He convinced local authorities to remove the pump handle. The outbreak subsided almost immediately. Even then, it took decades for Snow's theory to be fully accepted. It wasn't until 1883 when German scientist Robert Koch identified the cholera bacterium itself under a microscope. That germ theory finally replaced miasma theory in medical thinking. But the damage had been done. London needed a solution, and it needed one immediately. The breaking point came in the summer of 1858, an event so memorable it earned its own name: the Great Stink. That summer was unusually hot. The Thames, already heavily polluted, essentially became an open sewer. The smell was so overwhelming, so utterly unbearable, that members of Parliament fled the Houses of Parliament, which sat right beside the river. They soaked the curtains in lime chloride, trying desperately to mask the stench. Nothing worked. One scientist described the river. The feculence rolled up in clouds so dense that they were visible at the surface. The smell was very bad and common to the whole of the water. The whole river was for the time a real sewer. Parliament, finally unable to ignore the crisis literally under their noses, acted. They approved an ambitious plan by civil engineer Joseph Bazalgette to build a comprehensive sewer system for London. Over the next 2 decades, Bazalgette's teams constructed more than 1,100 miles of street sewers that connected to 82 miles of main intercepting sewers. These massive underground arteries diverted sewage away from the Thames, carrying it eastward to treatment works beyond the city. Bazalgette's sewers, built in the 1860s and 1870s, still function today, serving a city of over 9 million people. His work likely saved more lives than any other Victorian official. The cholera epidemics ended. London could breathe again. With sewers in place and water systems improving, the flush toilet's time had finally arrived. And this is where Thomas Crapper enters our story. Born in 1836, Crapper was a plumber who founded his company, Thomas Crapper and Company, in 1861. Now let's address the elephant in the bathroom. Thomas Crapper did not invent the flush toilet. This is one of history's most persistent myths. What Crapper did do was make flush toilets practical, reliable, and socially acceptable. He improved the floating ballcock mechanism that automatically shut off water flow when the tank was full, preventing overflows. He refined the U-bend, an improvement on Cummings' S-trap that was less prone to clogging. He championed the siphonic flush, which created a strong suction effect for more efficient waste removal, though this was actually patented by Albert Giblin in 1898. But Crapper's greatest innovation wasn't technical, it was social. In 1870, he opened the world's first bathroom fittings showroom on King's Road in London, with large street-facing windows displaying toilets, sinks, and bathtubs in all their gleaming porcelain glory. For the first time, these fixtures were presented not as shameful necessities to be hidden away, but as marks of modern hygiene and domestic pride. Victorian ladies reportedly fainted at the sight of toilets so brazenly displayed. But gradually, attitudes shifted. Crapper's company received royal warrants from King Edward VII and King George V. During World War I, his toilets were installed for British soldiers, with each cistern bearing the company name, Thomas Crapper and Company. American servicemen, amused by the name, began saying they were going to the crapper. The phrase stuck. As for the word crap itself, it predates Thomas Crapper by centuries, deriving from Middle English and Old French words for waste and refuse. But the association was too perfect to resist, and Crapper's name became forever linked to the toilet. By 1875, the British Parliament passed the Public Health Act, requiring every new house to have a water closet, privy, or ash pit. It had taken 279 years since Harington's invention for the flush toilet to become universal in Britain. But the revolution was just beginning. As cities around the world industrialized and built sewer systems, flush toilets spread across Europe, North America, and eventually the globe. The 20th century brought continuous refinement, more efficient flushing mechanisms, better materials, improvements in design. In 1907, American inventor Thomas McCavity Stewart patented the vortex flushing bowl design that became the global standard. The dual flush toilet arrived in the 1980s, conserving water by offering different flush volumes for liquid and solid waste. Smart toilets appeared in the 21st century, with heated seats, bidet functions, and even health monitoring capabilities. Yet for all our progress, the story isn't over. Today, more than 2 billion people worldwide still lack access to safe sanitation. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation launched the Reinvent the Toilet Challenge in 2011, seeking innovations that can provide sanitation without sewers, without running water, without electricity. Scientists are developing toilets that can kill pathogens, compost waste, extract valuable nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen, and even generate power. The next chapter in the toilet's evolution is being written right now, driven by the same imperative that motivated the engineers of Mohenjo-Daro 5,000 years ago: the need to safely separate human waste from human life. The flush toilet. It's easy to take for granted. It's easy to forget that for most of human history, sanitation was a luxury available only to the wealthy, if available at all. It's easy to forget that the absence of proper toilets killed millions through cholera, typhoid, and countless other diseases. But this humble porcelain throne represents something profound. Humanity's long struggle to create clean, healthy, dignified living conditions for everyone. From the sophisticated drains of the Indus Valley to Sir John Harington's Ajax, from Alexander Cummings' S-Trap to Joseph Bazalgette's sewers, from Thomas Crapper's showrooms to the smart toilets of today, the toilet's journey is a testament to human ingenuity, persistence, and the simple truth that civilization is built not just on grand monuments and glorious battles, but on mundane, essential innovations that allow us to live together in health and safety. So the next time nature calls and you answer in your climate-controlled bathroom with running water and a toilet that flushes with a single button press, take a moment to appreciate the thousands of years of innovation, the plague survivors, the banished courtiers, the Scottish watchmakers, the visionary engineers, and yes, even the Victorian plumbers who made that moment possible. The flush toilet may be ordinary, but its story is anything but. If you found this journey through the fascinating origins of the flush toilet as captivating as we did, we invite you to share this video with friends and family who might appreciate understanding the extraordinary history behind this everyday object. Give us a like if you enjoyed learning about the inventors, epidemics, and innovations that changed the course of public health forever. And don't forget to subscribe to the fascinating Origins of Things for more deep dives into the surprising stories behind the objects and inventions that shape our modern world. Until next time, stay curious,